And we're back. All right, so to continue our questions, I wanted to ask Lindsay, what data goes into these algorithms you were previously talking about, and what comes out of them?
Well, generally speaking, we have a lot of different inputs that we used. Okay, we have whether it was a sequel, how much did it make opening night, the critic rating, the customer rating, the genre, the MPAA rating, G, PG. We have several different inputs, but we have to remember that for these different algorithms, you can only put certain things in. For instance, correlation, you can only have numeric numbers going in because it's testing the rate of change.
Oh.
Whereas with association rules, you want to have names go in, or like actual words. You don't want to have numeric values going in. So it really depends on the different algorithm, what your inputs and outputs are going to be. And so for correlation, your output would be the relationship, whereas association, or it would be maybe the if-then premises that we talked about.
Okay.
You have anything to add to that?
Well, one of the techniques we use, discriminant analysis, requires us to use select an attribute that would be our target attribute, and that would have to be a label, the attribute, like a categorical thing.
Okay.
Such as a genre.
All right. Lindsay, what exactly does the algorithm give you usually?
Well, I mean, I guess we should go into, we have some slides we brought, so we can go into the specific algorithms and talk about numerically what are we getting out of these algorithms. So this matrix is called a correlation matrix, and what it does, it has the attributes listed both on the top and the side, down the side of the panel, and it basically matches up and shows you the relationship. As you can see, the top and the bottom are kind of mirrors of each other. They say the same thing on either side. But the closer it is, as we talked earlier, to 1, that is that shows that they have a closer relationship. And closer it is to 0, there's not a lot of correlation.
Yeah.
So for instance, we have a correlation of 9.03 between opening weekend and the total sales. So this says if there's a lot of sales on the opening night, there's probably going to be a lot of sales for the entire time the movie's out.
Yeah.
Whereas something like critic rating and year only have a .033, a really low rating. But I mean, if you think about this sensibly, the critic rating and the year really don't have anything in common.
Mm-hmm.
So you can really think about these and understand like why they would match up. But here's just it shows you all the difference. So you want to pick out the higher ones and give and look and see why would this be? What can we gain from this?
Lots of factors going into that.
Yeah, there definitely is.
Um,
On our next slide that we brought, we have multiple regressions. So basically what we did was we took a Y matrix, and that was our total sales that it had. We also had X, which contained 4 rows. One was full of ones, the next was the number of theaters, then we had how much it made on opening night, and finally a binary integer as to, kind of acted as a dummy variable as to whether it or not it was a sequel. So we used some matrix algebra in a program called MATLAB, and we came out with this matrix that we see here, which gives us that formula that I've written at the top. So now this is really easy. We can just plug in any values we want and predict. So for instance, if I'm a movie producer, I'm showing my movie in 4,000 theaters, the opening, how much I get on opening night is 29 million. There's this is the sequel to the movie. Then we're going to make $127 million, as you can see. So this is really helpful for predicting how much a movie is going to make for the producers.
okay. All right. Did you have anything to add?
Gabriel's going to talk a little bit about discriminant analysis and what we can gain from that.
Another technique we used is the discriminant analysis, which helped us identify which genres are the most successful genres and which ones yield a higher income into the movies. And as we could see, this categorizes our data in a predictive way, and we can determine that action movies actually, which are represented as number 8 in our slide, have the largest ratio of success, followed by family movies and comedy movies, and the least successful movies would include the musicals, the horrors, and the thrillers. And this could definitely help and provide a lot of insight for the production companies.
Okay. All right. right, my next question. Oh. What inferences can you make from this information that the algorithm provides?
Well, yeah, we definitely looked at a few of these, and we can make a few inferences, kind of just proving what we've been talking about the whole time. For instance, when we did our k-means clustering, we found that there's a grouping of summer movies that tend to be higher than the rest of the movies. So when we graphed it, we had definitely a higher, you can tell that more movies were coming out during the summer. So it's just showing us that producers generally are putting their movies out during the summer because that is going to give them a higher profit. A few other inferences. Gabriel, do you have any that you want to talk about?
Well, as I expressed, the genres help. They give the production companies estimate of where to establish their budget, do more action movies, since they usually have Americans like action movies the most apparently, and do less musicals, since probably that would not yield a high revenue.
Okay, all right. And how sound are those inferences you're talking about?
Well, each of these methods and techniques have a different confidence intervals, but we try to stay within the 95th percentile, because that's actually like a good confidence interval estimate, and we wanted to make sure that these are actual predictive.
Okay. So I'm guessing that answers my next question of how confident are you about these inferences?
Well, we could talk about it more specifically.
Yeah.
Like, as in, when we looked at correlation, those numbers are giving out our confidence intervals.
Yeah.
How confident are we that these two variables are, pretty much how confident are we that they're exactly alike? We're 90% confident that these two have the same growth rate. Or we have very low confidence that these have growth rate at all. So it really just depends on the variables, and I think overall the inferences that we've made are really confident, and we really think that what we're saying is true about these things, and we think that these can be derived from what we found through our algorithms.
It absolutely seems that way.
Thank you.
All right. Gabriel, my next question is for you. Would you change your business strategy based on what you found? And is there any discrepancies among the other teammates?
Well, I believe that production companies are actually doing a good job at analyzing these different methods. If they use it, or doing surveys and using other methods of more simpler ways to analyze the forecast of the demand. But we would definitely do some recommendations, such as make more action movies, as I expressed previously. Also, we would recommend to make more movies in the summer, since probably there's more daylight. And we would also recommend some of the things that yielded a high importance in the revenue, such as being open, having the sales in every theater, or as much theaters as you can.
Right.
And
Okay.
Lindsay, would you add something we could recommend the production industry?
I mean, I would just say definitely the more theaters. I would say get for the movie theaters out there to get as many theaters as possible, because we definitely saw a very strong correlation with how many theaters there was and how much the total revenue was. So I just think that putting your movie out there in more theaters is definitely our strongest correlation.
And so, I mean, I'm guessing that your entire team agrees with you on
Yeah,
this. I mean,
I think that everyone.
We had
Great.
Everyone agrees.
yeah, it sounds very sound. Sounds sound. Yes. All right. Now, are you intrigued by your findings? In particular, did you find anything that you didn't expect?
Well, I'm definitely intrigued by our findings, and there's a few things that we found that we didn't expect. We actually found that sequels, people are more likely to go to sequels just because they've seen the first one, they've enjoyed it. That's why the producer is creating a second one. So even though there's really poor critic ratings, there's usually a large domestic gross sale, because a lot of people are going to these. These are making a lot of money, even though they're not great movies sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes the sequels don't turn out very good, and the
Mhm.
critics rank them poorly, but people are still going to see them regardless because they've already seen
They
the
wanna
first
know
one.
what happens.
Exactly. And I think it's also very interesting that over the past 4 years, almost 50% of the top 100 movies are action movies. I think it just shows what Americans are entertained by, how they just want to see action, want to be excited. I just think that it's really interesting that such a large portion of all the movies are
That are out
that
there.
are ranked highly are action movies. People just really enjoy seeing those. I think
Yeah.
they show them to a large span of audiences. I think they appeal to a lot of different groups, so I think that's the main reason.
Okay. Did you have anything to add?
Sure. Another interesting thing that I was definitely not expecting is that movies that have higher revenues, higher gross domestic product, they have higher user ratings
Oh.
than critic ratings. And you would think that critics actually know best, but they might know best, but they might refer to their critic on the movie might refer to the plot of the movie and not specifically how popular it is.
Exactly.
Yes,
I
yes. Okay. All right, Gabriel, my next question's for you. Given you've done some preliminary research on this particular business, what additional research would you like to do if you had the data and the time?
Well, something that we would definitely like to do would be dig deeper into the award-winning movies and what determines it. That would be definitely interesting.
We might also want to look at foreign markets. I think that'd be a good place to look in, other than just America, because that's really all we focused on for this.
Oh, how so? How would foreign markets play into it?
Well, I think that if we looked in foreign markets, we would find that different cultures would change what people thought, or change the different, maybe the genre. Maybe other countries would be more interested in comedies or romance rather than action movie, just to see if the culture would change anything. Would they prefer different ratings, or would the critic ratings be different?
Okay.
And Gabriel can talk a little bit about how the awards.
Definitely, because we all wonder all the time, like, why would this movie win the award if it really, like, we've never heard of it, or maybe it's not the biggest hit of the season or of the year.
Yeah.
So we would like to determine it's usually confidential data, what determines what's the formula for an award-winning movie, but we would like to maybe predict based on what we have, which movies and which factors do the award-winning nominee and the award-winning company would consider highly ranked, and
Yeah.
maybe it's not what we consider.
Okay, great. All right, so I guess what do you expect to find from those future research projects?
I basically think what we just covered is what we expect to find. We expect
Yeah.
to find that different cultures are going to basically change the way that the data turns out. When we implement a lot of different countries and all the background information, I think it'll really change. And the same with awards. I think that we'll find a lot about what goes into. I think the award's going to have to do more with the plot and the critics. So I think we're going to have to put in different kind of audience aim and other kind of attributes to better tell us. I think we'll find out interesting information if we.
Let me know when you find out, please.
We will.
Okay. So what do you see as the future of data mining as companies are storing more and more information each year?
Well, yeah, I definitely think that the opportunities for data mining are endless. I think there's so much information out there. I don't think that we could ever come to a point where we've done enough data mining, that there's nothing else we could do to further research things. I think that we're constantly going to be growing, and there's always going to be more that we can find out, more that we can do to help companies optimize and just do the best they can by using data mining. I think it's such a great field, and I really recommend people to look into it and really, there's so many opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, from what you've told me so far, I'm even interested in it. So I appreciate all your time that you wanted to come out and take your time to talk with me about this. So I think our audience has learned a lot about data mining as well. So thank you so much for watching Good Morning America, and have a great afternoon.